So here we are. This is Volume 2, Stories of Wonder and Magic. And I'm just gonna pick a random story to read to you. If it's short enough, then I'll do 2. That's what I did with the first one. If you didn't get to see it, I definitely recommend it. I can't stop thinking about the King of Cats. It was so cute. I've not actually read any of these stories myself, so we're discovering them for the first time together. Let's see what we get today. Okay. This one looks alright. It's called Living in Wales. Living in Wales. Once there was a man who said he didn't like the sort of houses people lived in, so he built a model village. It was not really like a model village at all because the houses were all big enough for real people to live in, and he went about telling people to come and live in Wales. There was also living in Liverpool a little girl who was very nice, so when all the people went off with the man to live in Wales, she went with them. But the man walked so fast that presently some of them got left behind. The ones who were left behind were the little girl, an Alsatian dog, and a very cross old lady in a bonnet and black beads, who was all stiff but had a nice husband, who was left behind too. So they went along till they came to the sea, and in the sea was a whale. The little girl said that was what he meant, I suppose, when he talked about living in Wales. I expect the others are inside, or if not, in another one. We had better get in this one. So they shouted to know if they might come in, but the whale didn't hear them. The nice husband said if that was what living in Wales meant, he would rather go back to Liverpool. But the horrid old lady said, nonsense, I will go and whisper in its ear. But she was very silly, and so instead of whispering in its ear, she went and whispered in its blowhole. Still, the whale didn't hear, so she got very cross and said, none of this nonsense now. Let us in at once. I won't have it, do you hear? I simply won't stand it. And she began to stir in the blowhole with her umbrella. So the whale blew like an enormous sneeze and blew her right away up into the sky. On top of the water, he blew out of his hole, and she was never seen again. So then the nice husband went quietly back to Liverpool. But the little girl went to the whale's real ear, which was very small and not a bit like his blowhole, and whispered into it, please, nice whale, we would so like to live and come in, if we may, inside. Then the whale opened his mouth, and the little girl and the Alsatian dog went in. When they got right down inside, of course, there was no furniture. He was quite right, said the little girl. It is certainly not a bit like living in a house. The only thing in there was a giant wig that the whale had once eaten. So the little girl said, this will do for a doormat. So she made it into a doormat, and the Alsatian dog went to sleep on it. When he woke up again, he started to dig holes, and of course it gave the whale the most terrible pains to have holes dug by such a big dog in his insides. So he went up to the top of the water and shouted to the captain of a ship to give them a pill. On board the ship, there was a cold-dressed leg of mutton that the captain was tired of, so he thought, that will make a splendid pill to give the whale. So he threw it to the whale, and the whale swallowed it. And when it came to boggining down the whale's throat, the Alsatian dog, who was very hungry, ate it and stopped digging holes. had really only done it to get rid of the cold mutton. But the poor little girl wasn't so lucky as the Alsatian dog. He had a doormat to sleep on and something to eat, but there was no bed, and the little girl couldn't sleep without a bed to sleep on, possibly, and had nothing to eat. And this went on for days and days. Meanwhile, the whale began to get worried about them. He had swallowed them without thinking much about it, but he soon began to wonder what was happening to them and whether they were comfortable. He knew nothing at all about little girls. He thought he would probably want something to eat by now, but he didn't know at all what she would want. So he tried to talk down into his own insides to ask her. But that is very difficult. At any rate, he couldn't do it. The words all came out instead of going in. So he swam off to the tropics where he knew a parrot and asked him what to do. The parrot said it was quite simple and flew off to an island where there was a big snake. He bit off its head and bit off its tail and then flew back to the whale with the rest of it. He put most of the snake down the whale's throat so that one end just came up out of its mouth. There, he said, now you've got a speaking tube. You speak into one end of the snake and the words will go down to the inside of you. So the whale said, "Hello," into one end of the snake, and the little girl heard, "Hello," come out of the other. "What do you want?" said the whale. "I want something to eat," said the little girl. The whale told the parrot, "She wants something to eat. What do little girls eat?" "Little girls eat rice pudding," said the parrot. He had one in a big glass bowl. So he poured it down the snake too, and it came down the other end, and the little girl ate it. When she had eaten it up, she got hold of her end of the snake and called, "Hello, up it." "Hello," said the whale. "May I have a bed?" said the little girl. "She wants a bed," the whale said to the parrot. "You have to go to Harrods for that," said the parrot, "which is the biggest shop in London," and he flew away. When the whale got to Harrods, he went inside. One of the shop walkers came to him and said, "What can I do for you, please?" which sounded very silly. "I want a bed," said the whale. "Mr. Banks, beds," the shopkeeper called very loudly, and then ran away. He was terribly frightened because there had never been a whale in the shop before. Mr. Banks, the bedman, came up and looked rather worried. "I don't know what we have got as far as a bed that will exactly fit you, sir," he said. "Why not, silly?" said the whale. "I only want an ordinary one." "Yes, sir," said the bedman, "but it will have to be rather a large, ordinary one, won't it?" "Of course not, silly," said the whale. "On the contrary, it will have to be rather a small one." He saw a very nice little one standing in a corner. "I think that one will just about fit me," he said. "You can have it if you like," said the bedman, "but I think it's you who are the silly to think a little bed like that will fit you." "I want it to fit me inside, of course," said the whale, "not outside. Push," and he opened his mouth. So they all came and pushed, and sure enough, it just did fit him. Then he ate all the pillows and blankets he could find, which was far more than what was really needed. And when it all got down inside, the little girl made the bed and went to sleep on it. So the whale went back to the sea. Now that the little girl and the Alsatian dog both had something to eat and somewhere to sleep, they said the man was right. It really is much more fun living in Wales than living in a house. So they stayed on. P.S. The parrot went on feeding them, not always with rice pudding. And that's the end. I feel like that's a great story for anyone who lives in the UK or has been to Wales, because it's quite humorous, really. The next one is quite short too. I'll read that one as well if you like. It's called The Gardener and the White Elephants. It's got a little picture of an old man there. Okay. It says, was it there was once a gardener who had to look after such a big garden that he had to get up at 1 in the morning and didn't get to bed till 12 at night. So yes, okay. In fact, he only got 1 hour sleep each night. Well, I'm glad they clarified. And working so hard made him get thin and old and rheumaticky and lame long before he should. One day he planted out a beautiful bed of sweet peas, but when he came in the morning, something had been and eaten them up. Slugs, said the gardener, and when he planted out a fresh bed, he made slug traps out of orange peels and set them along the sweet peas. But when he came in the morning, the sweet peas were all eaten up, but the slug traps weren't touched. Then it wasn't slugs. He said, I wonder what it is. There's only one thing to do. Tonight I must miss my only hour of sleep and sit up and watch. So at 12 o'clock he went and sat by the sweet pea bed to watch, and he got sleepier and sleepier, till at last, when it was just 1:45, he couldn't keep awake and fell fast asleep, and when he woke up, all his sweet peas had been eaten again. So the next night he went to watch again, and this time took with him his fountain pen, and each time he was just going to fall asleep, he gave himself a jab with the nib, and woke himself up again. And at 5:1, what should he see but a very old rabbit, so old that its fur was all coming off, and his whiskers had turned white, and it hobbled as much as he did. But although it was so old, in a twinkling of an eye it had gobbled up all his sweet peas, and was hobbling away. Then the gardener got up and tried to chase it, but though the rabbit limped, he limped too, and though they both went so slowly, he couldn't quite catch it, but they hobbled, and hobbled till they reached the rose garden, and when they got there, the rabbit nibbled a rose leaf, and no sooner did it do that, than all of a sudden, it became a young rabbit again, and galloped away, at ever such a pace, while the poor old gardener was left rubbing his eyes. Well, 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 he said, well, well, well. So the third night he went to watch again, and again he kept awake by jabbing himself with his fountain pen. And again the rabbit came, old now as it had been before it ate the rose leaf. It gobbled up the little sweet pea seedlings, and the gardener chased it. But though he went as fast as he could, it was still ahead of him. And when it got to the rose garden, the rabbit nibbled a rose leaf, and quick as lightning, it was galloping away. But this time the gardener ate a rose leaf too, and in a moment he was turned into a strong young man and chased the rabbit as fast as ever he could. This time the rabbit couldn't get away, but it was still ahead when it reached its hole. The rabbit dived into the hole, and the gardener dived in after it, and the rabbit burrowed, and the gardener burrowed, but still he couldn't quite catch it, nor the rabbit quite get away. No, not though it dug like mad. Then, all of a sudden, the rabbit dug its way through into a great black pit, and the gardener, following close behind, suddenly found himself falling head over heels. Suddenly, like Alice in Wonderland. But he didn't have far to fall, only when he sat up, the rabbit was nowhere to be seen. It was quite dark, but all the same, he could just make out some huge white shapes, so he struck a match to see what it was, and found he was among 20 or 30 white elephants, all sleeping on the ground. Then one of them woke up and asked him who he was and what he was doing. I came in chasing that rabbit, said the gardener. The white elephant looked most shocked. What? He said. You are chasing our terrible lord and master, the rabbit whom none dares disobey. Indeed I was, said the gardener. But do you mean to say all you great white elephants are the slaves of one silly old rabbit? Of course we are, said the white elephant. And you do what he tells you? Asked the gardener. Of course we do, said the white elephant. But supposing you didn't, said the gardener, what would happen? I don't know, said the elephant. No one has ever dared try. Then try, said the gardener. Nothing will happen. Do something disobedient and see. But what is it they're disobedient we can do? Said the white elephant. Is there a way out of this cave? Asked the gardener. Yes, there is, said the elephant. But the terrible rabbit has told us not to go out. Then come out, said the gardener. Show me the way, and we will all go together. So the white elephant woke up the other before their eyes he began to swell and grow, and his teeth grew sharp as a tiger's, and his eyes flashed fire. And then he sprang at the first elephant with a savage growl and plunged his teeth into his trunk. "That's what comes of disobeying me," he said. But the gardener was not afraid, and, big and fierce though the rabbit had become, he sprang at it and seized it by the throat, and then began the most terrible fight between the gardener and the rabbit. Sometimes the gardener got the best and held the rabbit down on the ground, and sometimes the rabbit got the best and tried to bite the gardener's throat. But at last the gardener won and managed to strangle the rabbit till it was quite dead, and then the other white elephants marched up on top of the tunnel till they reached the open air. "Now, will you be my white elephants?" asked the gardener. "We will, of course we will," sang the white elephants all together. Now that he had all these white elephants, the gardener, of course, was rich and didn't have to work in the garden anymore. Instead, he had a small but comfortable house for himself, and a perfectly enormous stable for all the white elephants. And there they lived happily together forever after. And this was the strange thing, that though when the rabbit had eaten the rose leaf, it had only made him young for one night, when the gardener ate his, it made him young forever, so that he never knew